Yo, yo, what's happening, beautiful people? My name's Donovan. I'm the head of community here at Venice and co-manager. It's a pleasure to see y'all today. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you're having a good week. We got a great conversation coming up here between Gordon Dillard and Troy Carter. It's going to be a good convo. I hope all of y'all are doing well. Before we jump in, we're just going to brief. I just wanted to get a room check. If you're new here, there's a lot of cool stuff going on within the co-manager and Venice community. We actually built a great tool called co-manager, and this platform is really amazing for artists, their teams. A lot of artists need help. They need help with execution. They need help with building strategy. They need help with content ideas. So our team built a tool within co-manager that does a lot of things for you. So just to kick it off, you get your aura, which is a brand book. It gives you a bio. It goes through your visual world. It pulls all the different sonic references and artists that similar artists that sound like. And then it also gives you different things that you can work on and prioritize from strategy, and things you can improve on, and also the things that you're doing well. So once you get your aura done, then you can have full access to the platform and you're able to do a lot of things from building your release strategy. You can take different concepts you have around a release, use co-manager to build that. Also helps with building content calendars, content ideas. We even have artists using it to develop and build their merch. There are also artists that are using it to be able to, build out their music videos. So it's a tool that can do a lot of things. You can also pitch to playlists. We have a bunch of playlists and playlist curators on there. You can also pitch to venues to be able to, get shows and book shows. You can even route a tour using co-manager. And then another great thing about co-managers, you can also find collaborators and people to build with. Another cool feature that we just launched is our For You section. So many of y'all here who have seen it, there's actually a For You section that lists out all these different opportunities that we have. Some feedback we got was artists want more opportunities with the industry. So this event we're hosting here with Gordon and Troy, that's one example of some of the things that we want to do to make not only an app that can help you in the digital world, but something that can help you in the personal world and personal connection and give you more access to the industry. Another thing that we have on there is the ability to have a call with Troy, and people from our team. So a lot of really cool things. Definitely check it out. If you haven't checked it out already, we do have a link that I'll share in the chat for you to check it out. But without further ado, let's get to the real conversation at hand. So, this conversation here is something that doesn't take place often. When you have two of the greatest music managers together in a room for a conversation around how to develop and build artist careers. When it comes down to it, most people spend a whole career trying to break one artist. The two men joining us today have both done it within the industry at the highest level. Troy Carter met a singer right after she was dropped from her label and ended up turning her into a household name, who we all know as Lady Gaga. He went on to build Adam Factory, where he also managed artists like John Legend, Charlie Puth, Meghan Trainor, and then he went on to work at Spotify as the head of global creator services. Today, he sits as a CEO and co-founder of Venice and co-manager, and with his co-founder Susie Rue. Gordon Dillard went from booking travel for other people's artists at Motown to the EVP of A&R and artist development at Capitol. And for nearly 10 years, he's helped develop and build Doja Cat into one of the most iconic artists of our generation. Doja is such a unique artist because she does it all. She can rap, she can sing, she builds worlds around her music, and Gordon was a part of that team that was able to develop Doja into who she is today. Today, he's the co-founder and co-CEO of Good Day Management alongside his partner Josh Kaplan. Please welcome me, and also please welcome Troy Carter and Gordon Dillon. All right, what up? What up?
What's up, guys?
What's happening?
Gordon,
What's up, my man?
all good, man. Thank you for doing this.
Of course. Am I delayed for everybody? Or like, am I, I don't know if you people can see me.
Yes, good on my end.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, good on my end. Well, man, like I
Yeah.
said, thank you for doing this. We've done several of these conversations, and I gotta say, the reaction to this one was
Yeah.
overwhelming. Like just the amount of artists that responded, the
Mhm.
amount of questions that have come in, and just the amount of respect that people have for you as a manager and your work.
Yeah.
Has been amazing. And me on a personal level, just over the years, watching how you moved and how
Mhm.
you built. it was you've always been one of those managers from the outside looking in that I personally admired.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons was I didn't know too much about you because a lot of
Mhm.
managers try make it about themselves, and it was impressive that you let the work speak for itself. So what I would love just to I know now about your background. Donovan just mentioned a lot of the things that you've accomplished, but just give us some color on just how you started, how you got into the business, and and how you got to where you are right now.
Um, well, first, man, Troy, like, I share the same sentiment toward you, man. You're like one of the guys that, as I was building a career in management, you were one of the guys that like that was like the blueprint for me, at least, especially as like a young black manager. So I appreciate your journey and all the conversations we've had and just what you've done for your career. So it's been truly inspiring. So and for myself, man, like I started my music career in New York, and my sister worked at a label and at Motown actually, and she was in the finance department. And so I used to go visit her, and then I used to kind of just wander around the label and meet people. And I always wanted to be an A&R. Like it was just something about the creation of the music that I really enjoyed. And this, music for me was like my father was like he played piano, and my brother was a rapper for what that was, and my mom was in the film stuff like that. So my family was in the arts, and so music was always a part of my life. But like just the feeling of what it did for people and what it did for me, I was like, I got to be a part of it. So A&R was something I wanted to be in, and so I met this guy named Raheem Thomas and Bruce Carbone, and started interning essentially, like not really a real internship, but I used to just go in and help and just kind of create as much value as I can, and kind of just, my philosophy was like, if you are really good at somebody, if somebody depends on you to do something, then it's really difficult for them to get rid of you. And so I was like,
Yep.
so for my thing was like, let me see what they need help with. That's not just coffee, and and perfect that while also just building in other places. So that's what I did. And as he mentioned earlier, like I was handling all the travel for Cash Money. That was something they wanted to pass off to me. And then when it became time for me to move on, because I just, I was doing it for free for so long, I couldn't afford to stay in the city and stuff like that. So like they, Slim actually, got me my first job with Motown. And so I was working for this guy, Shep Goodman, and I was his A&R assistant. But also at the same time was bringing as many projects and artists and things like that to the table with Bruce, just to try to make some money and build relationships. And that was like my start. And then I left there and worked for BET after the Motown kind of got emptied out when Lucian came in, and worked for BT for a while. It was something that kept me involved in music. It was like in the for underneath Stephen Hill. It was in the music production side of things. So I was still a part of all the music stuff, and that's where I had started managing these producers, and they were by the Mechanics at the time, and they were known for doing a lot of their earlier Bryson Tiller work. They did like Right My Wrongs and did Exchange and a few other records, and then like so managing them and working and with through relationships that I was getting at work. Like I would always go into the rooms and meet the managers, meet the artists, and just like just give them beats and stuff like that. And we were able to get quite a few placements, and and build something along those lines. And then met other artists and kind of built in that space. And we had like one successful artist. His name was Amir Obey, that we were building. He got really close with Drake and those guys. So like my relationship started really working while I was working. I was still working at BT at the time, actually. Um, got fired from BT because I was more focused on my other things. But at the same time, they paid me basically to, I had a severance. I was there for about 4 years, so I had like 4 or 5 months of income while going out and hustling and trying to, try to make do. Those 5 months ran out, but the 6 month is when I signed my first publishing deal, and at that point, it was proof of concept that I can make money doing music management. And then yeah, that those next couple of years had a lot of success with the same producers, new producers, the same, different artists across the board. And then met a guy named Sal. Sal manages the weekend, and he brought me into Maverick and with Guy Siri and Greg Thompson, and we started Maverick Urban, what it was, and Doja was the third act that we had signed on for management. And I met her. I met this guy named Yeti in Miami. He introduced me to the team that was currently working there, which was Josh, is my current partner, and a few others that were involved. And yeah, we worked. We worked our first project, which was well, the first song I actually worked on was T and Tamara, and then we put the Juicy record together, and things took off from there. And then about 3 years ago, Josh and I started Good Day, and we began managing her separate of the other two entities, and here we are now.
So you've been there pretty much day one.
I wouldn't say day one, no. I would say like Moo had already come out, the Amala album had already come out. I got in at the beginning of Hot Pink. I'd say that's what I entered in.
And then I guess what let's just taking a step back. What a lot of people don't really understand the role of a manager. So I'd
Yeah.
love just to hear from your point of view. What's the role of a manager? What makes a good manager, and how should artists go about finding one? Like from a process perspective as well.
Yeah, I think so management, man. My form of management, what I've always found to be a good manager is someone that is proactive, right? Someone that understands the artist's vision for themselves, but also understands what the end goal is, and understands, and if they don't understand, they figure out how to get to that end goal without compromising the artistry and the integrity of what you're looking to do, right? So, for me, a manager that is, you have managers that are, and they look the same, really, right? But you have managers that are like, I call them inbox processors, right? And those are guys that like they take the incoming in, and they do that really well, but they're not doing any outcome and our outreach, right? But are managers that are just yes men and allow their artists kind of walk over them. They don't have the respect there, right? I think artists and manager respect should be there, and that could mean that you guys are going to have some arguments. That could mean you might get fired for a couple of days. That could be a lot of different things, but you have to stand and have some integrity. And I think when you develop that relationship with the artist, I think there's respect amongst like your decision or your thought process. Like, Doja and I, like we've gone at it several times, but I still stay firm in what I truly believe in is correct. And there's, she might fight myself or Josh or those guys and or any of our team, but I think at this point she fights it to see how much we're willing to push, right? And how much we stand on it. So I'd say an artist that, a manager that stands on their actual opinion. I think a manager that is, that a great manager knows how to say no, knows how to walk away from a large, bag of money, knowing that it's not good for the future of the business. I think a manager that understands how to protect the scarcity of an artist versus overexposing an artist, or just doing busy work, because busy work feels like you're advancing or you're progressing, but in reality, you're harming the overall. And so and I think I always say this. I think if you're a newer artist and you're looking for a big manager, I think that is the wrong way of thinking. I think just as in you looking for fans, or you looking for, I think you have to attract these people, right? You have to attract them, but with proof of concept. And so I think instead of looking for the big manager, I think they should be looking for someone that is willing to put, and I say life on the line, but it's a little, it sounds dramatic, but it feels like it sometimes, but like
True.
willing to put their life on the line for that dream and that goal, because that's the energy that it's going to take to be successful in music these days, especially now in times it's a lot of traffic, and so it's harder to cut through the weeds on a lot of things, right? So finding that person and then finding that person that wants to learn. I think a good manager also is one that doesn't know it all, that understands that there's so much more to learn, and that this music industry, every couple of years, the information is revolving, things are updating, there's new ways of doing things, and like you cannot be a guy that knows it all and ignores the new things that are the new updates, essentially, because then you're negotiating with people that do know the updates, and like you're just really killing yourself and the artist at the end of the day. So it's like the go find yourself someone that's hungry, that loves what you do, and you love what they do, and you believe in them like they believe in you, and you guys are both willing to put 50% of the work up and give 100% of that 50% and into what you're doing, and willing to sacrifice. That's the guy you should look for, because that's the guy that I think has the potential of making it. And look, if you come across one of the bigger managers, like, if I found an artist at a younger artist right now with that hungry person, I'm hiring that hungry person, and I won't, not dismantle the team, but like just increase what they're doing, and instead of like tear it apart. That's just me personally. I know there's other managers that won't do that, but I think that's a safer bet. And I think also it's like, again, you want to keep you don't want to keep the momentum going. So I think that's the way to get attention from some of the larger guys, because it's at the end of the day, it's an investment into the artist's growth in their career.
So where, going back, like where, if you were doing it over again today, or if Doja was just walked into your office,
Mhm.
where do you start right now? Because most of the artists that we see are sort of day ones. They're trying to figure out how to
Yeah.
get their first 100 fans. And
hmm
where does it start? What's step one?
I mean, it depends on where the artist is at in their career, right? Like you got to
Yeah,
assess where they
I,
currently are.
I'm talking, and I'll give you sort of average examples. So artists that
Mhm.
I see, probably anywhere between 500 monthly listeners on Spotify to, maybe a few thousand listeners. Um,
Yeah.
maybe put out a couple of projects, just
Mhm.
so it's really, really early. So
Yeah.
just kind of, a lot of them don't even know where to begin and sort of
Yeah.
how to proceed. And when you look at an artist as big as some of the artists that you've worked with and you've named, it almost seems like insurmountable to get from that early point to as
Yeah.
big as somebody like a Doja. So, and
Yeah.
it's intimidating, and so that's the sort of mentality I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. Well, one, if you're an artist trying to do this, the real reality is, it takes artists, 7, 10 years to break, for real, like really break. And
How long?
I'd say 7 to 10 years, man. Like it took
Hmm.
Doja
Hmm.
9 years to really, she'd been doing it for 9 years before she started getting some real recognition, right?
Like I just want people to really take that in. It's like it takes time.
hmm
It takes time. None of this happens quickly.
No, and not only that, but that's anything you're trying to do. You know,
Yep.
um, it could be building a business. Anything is going to take time. And what separates those artists or those entrepreneurs or those people is just consistency a lot of the times, and
Hmm.
updating, and those things separate a lot of artists from other artists, and not faltering on what you believe in. Doja was successful because she believed in one thing and she didn't allow people to move her off of it, and she stayed consistent for a very long time. And then when she didn't have the resources, she created it herself. Like that movie video she did in her own room. You know what I mean? Like
And
she learned.
what does consistency look like for her?
It's creating, consistent with creating, releasing, finding, like the internet. Doja she's was always really good at the internet, and so it's continuously putting herself out there, um, putting her music out there, putting her image out there. Those are things that, like, are keeping herself consistent. And it's some of the things that you don't even see, right? Like it's like the work you don't see is like days in the studio, days, creating content, those type of things that, like, just because you don't have to release a song every day or once a week or once a month or every 6 weeks for the work to still be, there's work that are still, it still needs to get done. You know what I mean? So like those things too, it's like, it's consistent waking up every day, knowing that you're not where you want to be, but knowing where you want to be and taking steps towards that every single day, even when no one's looking. That's the work that she's done consistently. That's the work that we've all done consistently. You know what I mean? And because most of the time, the what the what the masses is gonna see is just that small mound of growth versus underneath the ground, the volcano of and the Mount Everest of effort that you put in just to get that plant to grow this much. They're never going to see that work. So it's that work, that consistency below the line is what's going to separate most artists from success and not being successful.
And then I guess with just across her career so far, and
Yeah.
including other artists that you've worked with as well, how do you guys handle projects or campaigns and things that don't work? Like what does failure look like, and how do you guys recover from it?
I mean, failure is subjective, right? I think, people can look at V, for example, they can look at that album and compare it with her other albums and say like that was a failure. Although it's still, we still did, 70,000 units first week, and she's the album is streamed, singles were at 200 million, I think, when the album came out, and people, that's, if you compare that with other artists, that's very successful, right? If you compare
Give me
that,
give me that failure all day, by the way.
yeah, that's what I'm like in that, and people are like, oh, you flopped, and I'm like, that's a flop. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. Like, but again, like that's the internet talking, right? So like, you can't really pay attention to those things. So, I mean, it is that, right? And it's tough sometimes because when you put everything into it and you naturally like grow this expectation of what you think it's going to be, and when it doesn't happen, it's like, it could be heartbroken. A lot can come from it. But I think for us, it's like there's different stages of what success looks like. And for us, she's the campaign that we ran for V to us was very successful. And we did quite a bit of things, and we started that campaign. What people didn't realize, I mean, some people picked up on it, but we started seeding the music because we knew it was going to be a different era of music. And like with Doja, she always kind of presents herself, and she creates a different era, every time she comes out with an album. It's just really how she's feeling, right? We started that process in February, and the album came out in October. We started seeding music
Wow.
in a Taco Bell commercial for the Super Bowl, and the background of the Taco Bell commercial was that song "Jealous Type," and it was playing in the
Yeah.
background of it. So like people, and it wasn't something that like we didn't put it out there, but like some people caught on to it, and some people didn't catch on to it, but it was there. And then we followed that up with like a Marc Jacobs campaign where we put the record into a little more, right? And like, but it was every step of the way we found, because for example, brands, we use brands very strategically. Like all these things are all very strategic, right? Like you have to but you have to utilize them in an organic way. Otherwise, it looks like the artist is selling out, right? Like she's very fashion forward and leaning. So using something with Marc Jacobs and doing something with them, and then also using them, going to the Met with him. That's very organic for her, right? He dressed her for the Met. She's a face of the campaign for the summer. They're playing her music that's unreleased in the campaign, right? And then you have Mac. She's the global face of Mac. We have a Mac commercial with with all the models in it that you didn't know if it was a music video or a Mac commercial. You couldn't tell the difference because it was so seamless, right? And then she's a gamer. Then you have, we were plugging Fortnite, the gaming in Fortnite, and all the other little things that we did. We're all building the world for the fan to experience the music, and that was the most important thing for us. Is like we want people to remember something, we want people to feel something, and so when we're going into albums and campaigns and things of those nature, it's we consider all of those things, and then we look at brands. We consider um, what does that brand represent? What do they stand for? Who's their demographic? And who is our audience that we're promoting the music to? And how can we build awareness across those fronts? So, V
So you're
and
not
I's.
looking at those partnerships just through the lens of how big is the check.
Nah, man, like there's some of these, like there's some of those deals that like the checks weren't, sizable to some checks she's getting it or she's got, were small in comparison, but like, and some, it's again, it's about the marketing value, but that's what
Yeah,
I was saying about like, good and versus bad management. There's managers out there that like, all right, the check isn't this amount of money, they're not doing it. But yet they're missing out on the fact that that brand's gonna spend $10 million in marketing. Like it's like that's
yeah,
more valuable than a $500,000 check. It's like but you have to look at it from that perspective. You have to understand the business and the nuances of those things. So yeah, like no, it's not. It's like it's is the brand something that she actually is, would stand for? Like again, Marc Jacobs is something that she does, that's a fashion thing. Her and Mark have their relationship. And the Met Galas, that's always Doja. The video games, like she plays Fortnite, that's something like, super, super organic for her. Mac makeup, she is always involved in cosmetics in that world. So like these are all things that are organic to her. So they make sense. And then they also have massive followings, and it's a mutual exchange there where we get marketing value, we get visibility for our project and our campaign, and it makes sense. One of the things we did that actually we did something with Amazon where not a dollar was exchanged, and they used her name on the boxes of Amazon delivery boxes, and it was
no, no, it's
uh
so funny. I was gonna hit you about it because I was going through. We had some packages in our garage, and I
yeah,
saw the Doja thing on the side of the Amazon boxes, and I'm like,
yeah,
I didn't know. I didn't know whether you guys played a role in it or whether they just did it. But I'm like, that is exposure because everybody sees that. Everybody
everybody
gets
had it.
Amazon.
And it was like I forget, it was like 300,000 boxes or something like that. It was so many boxes that I'm like, they're like, there's no money need to be exchanged for that. That is, you can't pay for that type of promotion. That's like, especially with Amazon. I got boxes from Amazon. Everybody, people order from Amazon, 3, 4 times a week sometimes, and we're just seamlessly a part of people's lives by them just getting packages, you know?
But
Um,
it just shows intelligent decision making, by the way.
for sure.
Because it's easy to say yes to stuff for free when you're struggling and and you need the exposure or whatever else. But
Yeah.
when a lot of artists kind of hit that huge point, not
Hmm.
exchanging dollars, it is a non-starter not getting paid. So it's like it just shows the level of long-term thinking and intelligence around it, the decision making too.
Yeah. Well, because you wanted to last. That's the thing. It's like it's getting there is one mountain to climb. Keeping it is a completely different mountain to climb. And
Yep.
it takes careful thinking and great decision making at the end of the day.
Yep. Absolutely.
Hmm.
One of the things like my personal um obsession is um how the greats do their process.
Hmm.
And so when I think about like I read Mamba Mentality a million times, because
Hmm.
Kobe was obsessed with process
Hmm.
and studying other people's process. Um, a lot of artists that I meet, by the way, both developing artists and artists that already have careers. A lot of them don't understand the mindset that it takes to become that big and and sell arenas and stadiums and have longevity over any arc of time and not be a sort of flash in the pan. I guess tell me about what's the mindset that you look for in artists, like what quality that you see consistently that makes superstars.
Um, I mean, I feel like uh they have that thing that doesn't turn off. A lot of artists that I've noticed, like
Mm,
they there's just that thing, and it's hard to say what that thing is, but like the greats
the
that I have
maniacal
had,
obsession.
yes, and it's like and it's but also I see that in great people. It's not just
Hmm.
specifically with artists, right? I think it's successful people. They have this obsession for something where like and it doesn't turn off. And when I see that with an artist, like and I say that to say is like that's the only important thing. It feels like that's the only important thing because they're just consistent at it. It's like God, it's like they have to attack it. And like I watched, for example, I'll just get this because it's Doja. I watched Doja made she made Scarlet in 10 days. And
Wow.
I watched her lock in the studio and produce 3 songs a day. Not even a day, technically a night, because she would start the sessions probably like, 3, 4 o'clock, and we wrap by 12. Like an 8 hour block, she was like knocking out 3 songs a day.
Doing three songs a day.
Yes, and I'm not saying like three like, you know, a hook. I'm saying songs. She was cooking them, and she writes all
Wow.
of her own music. But it was like
Wow.
she had something to say. It was an obsession that she had. It was like, and then when she was done, she was done. Like she finished early, and she was like, I'm done, and like and moved on to the next thing. Like we ended the sessions earlier, and like because we were there for 2 weeks, 10 days, she was like, I want to go home. Boom, done. But it was like, and then she was on to the next thing but it all was leading and all contributing to like what this was, what Scarlet was in the moment. So it's like when I look at artists, it's like, are you obsessed? How much do you love making music? Are you obsessed with making
Hmm.
music? Are you obsessed with the idea of and what is success to that artist, right? You know, if just the success is just to be famous, I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Because being famous is fleeting. And also when you become famous, you realize how much you don't want to be famous. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like that's just not enough to like I can't invest in that, right? But for artists that have real reasons for why they want to do music, um, and they don't know how to shut that thing off, I'm like, I want to be. It's dangerous, but I want to be on that team. And I say it's dangerous because sometimes those artists are willing to do anything to create that success, and like that can
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
not so great for the manager. But but at least you know that your time is going to be matched by the artist's effort, and that is one thing that you know not all I've worked with great talents too, man, where they didn't have that thing. They were extremely talented, but they didn't have that
Yeah.
thing. And it was like, and it
Yeah.
was like, I would bang my head against the wall. Like, I'm like, you have it all. Why can't
That's the
you
biggest
just,
trap. That's the biggest trap, by the way. But when an artist has that much potential, but they don't have that animal inside and
yeah, they don't
that
got the
that level of
dog.
obsession is like that to me is the most frustrating thing for me as a manager when you see it, but they don't have the ability to get through it. And and especially I admire managers in this current environment than even more than managers who managed artists during the period that I've managed artists or before, because
Yeah,
it's like the level of work, commitment, mental health stress, attention that never leaves. Like, it's very
yeah,
hard that, even if an artist can turn it off, fans will keep it on, or, media or blogs will keep it on, this sort of 24-hour news cycle and 24-hour social cycle, is very hard to sort of, um, plow through that. So
yeah,
like, so the managers that can consistently keep artists sane and
Mm-hmm.
successful through that period of time, I'm like, hats off, because that's a tough job. But like,
Yeah.
I guess adjacent to that question, to that, um, are there any sort of young artists or young managers that you see breaking right now that you admire? And are there any sort of strategies that you've seen that you've been paying attention to, of seeing like how artists are breaking?
Um, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on her name, but like Olivia Dean's manager, I admire a lot. I follow her on Instagram, and like we have the same music agent, but I really like how they have grown their business over the
Yes.
last 5 6 years. She's like taking her time with it. They create really great music, and it's a tight knit family. It's very similar to how we are with Doja, um and I like her story and journey because she stuck with her. And also I like that Olivia also stuck with her as well. And they're still
Yes.
best friends,
Yes.
right? And that is a that is
So
a
so
rare,
hold on.
huh?
So I don't know a lot about Olivia's managers. So they were did she have big clients before or anything like
No,
that?
no. So she's a
Amazing.
bit yeah, from what I know, the knowledge I know, she was a younger manager that just worked with Olivia, and but Olivia, she stuck with her. And that's also a tough place, man, because like typically that's where artists and manager kind of go, separate. Artists are like, I'm in this space now, I need this manager now.
Yeah.
And they, and
Yeah.
they separate. And that is the probably the most heartbreaking thing for someone that has given 5 6 7 years of their life to see some success. And then when that success happens, they got to watch it from the sidelines.
Man, because it's like that growing together is
Mm-hmm.
like, you can't beat it. And I just remember, like, one of the ways that Gaga and I really really got close
Mm-hmm.
was she had become, like, when her first song sort of exploded. It was it was like a moment that the industry never hadn't seen in, a long 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 time.
Yeah.
And she was, young, uh white pop star, and it's
Mm-hmm.
this, young black hip hop manager who had never managed a pop star before, who didn't know what he
Yeah.
was doing managing her. And the biggest manager in the world called her lawyer, and wanted to take a meeting with her. And the lawyer called her dad, trying to get the meeting set up.
Mm-hmm.
And she called me up and she said, "Hey Troy, I want you to do me a favor. Um, fire such and such, the lawyer." And I said,
Yeah.
"What? For what?" And she told me. She was like, "That's not happening."
Yeah.
And here you are, the biggest manager in the world, and that was her opportunity, like,
Mm-hmm.
for somebody to take her to the next level. But what it showed was, we got here together. Let's finish
Mm-hmm.
this out. And with Olivia, and the reason why I was asking you that question is, a lot of artists don't know that you can get to the promised land with somebody who may not have that level of experience as, some of the other artists that you might admire.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as that person is smart,
Mm-hmm.
curious, and 100% invested in you, that's the opportunity.
One
That's the
thousand percent.
opportunity. But yeah, because whoever's coming in, they're buying into something that was already built, or something
and
that
they,
they
and they don't
see.
understand it. They don't know it. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like,
yes,
and
yes.
that's their disadvantage because they just don't know it. They don't understand it, and that's why, like, when you're saying like what the what these younger artists should be doing as far as finding a manager. I'm like, you looking for the big manager? Like, yeah, that could come into play for you at some point, right? And it could work. But also, it could really jam you too, because if you're having somebody that's making decisions based off of something they don't understand, and are you just looked at as like as like just dollar signs? It's a very different
Yep.
thing than the person that would literally die for you and is given their entire life. But you're right though; they have to stay curious, they have to be willing to learn, and they have to be smart. If you have that and you've made some level of success, man, you got to keep rocking because who knows if Gaga made the other decision, where she would be right now.
Hmm.
We don't
Hmm.
know, right? But we know where she is right now because she made the right decision, and and her career has been massive. So it's yeah, man, I agree with you 1,000% on that one.
And then I guess like with that switch, how you were saying, um, Doja came to you guys after she had previous management, then came to you guys, without you having to be specific, about what happened. I guess what was she not getting that she saw with you guys? Like what was the difference? What was she
Are
looking
you saying
for?
like when we very first got into involved?
Yeah, when you first got into the Doja business.
Well, it wasn't so much what we weren't getting, right? It was more of an addition to what there was already there, right? So it was
Hmm.
like, she didn't really have a team. She had Yeti and she had her attorney, which is Josh, which is now my partner in the business as well. And then she had a few other some other people, and it just wasn't there. Like the experience necessarily wasn't there. And so it was like, her label was on the fence whether or not releasing her or not. There was a lot of things in play. They just needed more, and we weren't coming
Hmm.
into a position of like trying to take over what they were doing. It's really more just being an additive to what they currently have. And that's what I say, like when I was like, if you're gonna go with a big manager, find the guy that wants to add to it, doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily want to take you out of the picture. You know what I mean? Because they are those guys, and they're like, it's either those guys or it's the lawyer. It's one of the two, right? It's always it's one of the two. So
And what's the makeup of her team? Like, and
uh,
and not even just her team. Like, even with other artists, what types of team members do you guys put around the artist?
like for us, we have again, it's me and my partner. Then we have our day to day, which was her assistant at one point. Then she moved to project manager. Then she moved to day to day recently. And then we have a project manager around her. We have a creative director and stylist. We have a brands guys, basically the brands team, and then we have her PR, and that's her immediate circle. Like we don't, it's not too more extensive out of that. We have some other services that we use outside independently of the label and our management company, but that's particularly it, man. And
Amazing.
we find it that a tighter team that's dedicated to her projects, that's willing to work, we move very quickly, and that's like been the reputation of is like we're fast moving, we're prompt and on time. So is Doja, and yeah, and we're focused all the way through. So it's like people like working with us because of those reasons.
And then I guess for the artists who can't afford any of those people, like what would the broke artist team look like?
I mean, I always say start with a lawyer you trust. In my
Hmm.
opinion, I think because there's a lot of legal side, or you can't move too much without doing anything on the legal side, whether that's creating a project and you got producers you got to deal with, all those things. Like it's like you got to have a lawyer that believes in you, and you believe in the lawyer, and you trust the lawyer. Like that's the biggest thing. And then I mean, honestly, man, a manager. Some of the artists that we were really successful with in the beginning, that like we took them from nothing to like tours and stuff like that. Man, I played every role. I was a manager, the tour manager. I
Yeah.
drove the bus. I did the lighting for the shows. I did every. It's like you got to get with the people that you just got to you got to do what you got to do. You might wear 1,000 hats. I was at Def Jam so much they thought I worked there because I was in there packaging up all the marketing tools and
Yeah.
marketing
Yeah.
packages. It was like it had to get done. So it was like we're gonna do it. So you got to that's
Now, one
that's
one of the things I did with every artist on every tour, I always carry bags off the bus, no matter how big I was or how big the artist was,
Yeah.
because I set the tone for
Yeah.
we do everything. Is
Yeah.
no hierarchy. Is like we grind this out at the smallest level, whether we're in a van or whether we're in a 747 private jet. We grind it out the same. So just that humility of having somebody that's gonna do everything, and
Hmm.
no bit of work is too good.
It's the same way now. Like sometimes she'll be like, "Yo, I'm sorry to ask you this," and I'm like, "Ask me." If nobody else can get it done, I'll do it. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yep.
and there's still that respect there. Like, so it's not like, it's not like I'm gonna add. She knows what's your job and what's not your job. But like, look, if it's just us and we got to get it done, we got to get it done. So it's the same thing, whether it be the music business or any other business that we're involved in. Like, there's nothing. We're not too good for anything as long as it's gonna get us across the finish line. It's a team sport. You know what I mean? We'll wear as many hats as we have to wear to finish the job. And that's always been the mentality. It's the same mentality we still go through.
And then from your point of view, how do you look at um what stats are you looking at for signing an artist?
Man, I'll be honest, brother. I've always been a feeling person and a vibe person. Like, it's cool to look at stats, but we're builders, so it's like I look at the what the artist has and the heart of the artist and the talent and the music, and then I'm like, we go create the stats. If it's good enough to do it, we'll go create the stats for it. Like, I've just never been
So
like,
so you're not so your thing is you don't have to be at a certain amount of monthly listeners or streams or anything if the music and the artist is great.
that's how I do it. Like, even when A&R and stuff like that, it was never like, even so, I was an EVP at Capitol for a while, and like we look at artists, and there's some great artists that I had some great meetings with, and it was always about, when I met with the artists, is about how I felt about the artist and how they felt about themselves and the work that they've done and what they're willing to put in. It was never about like your stats, because like people sometimes will. It's like, I'm not saying data is not important, because data is very important, but sometimes data will take you away from the prize. And sometimes data will take you away from, and you might miss a Picasso because you were looking at
Yes.
numbers. You know what I mean? And it's like, so it's like, because music that makes you feel something may not have numbers attached to it, but it's something that like the world needs, and like it's
Yep.
something that like people will resonate with, and we'll go create those things. You know what I mean? If we're putting the work in, if we're dedicated, we're rocking out, we'll make that work. It's 9 years from now, people to see it, but if we're both consistent with it, and we're locked in on the finish line, a goal, I'm not worried about the numbers, man. Those things come and go. Numbers, the artist that has numbers, they can lose all those numbers.
Yep. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
like, yeah, it's never been a numbers game. It's always been a feeling thing for me, man.
So, and I know is a bunch of people wanted to ask questions, and I want to be respectful of your time, and give
Yeah.
some of the artists the ability to ask some questions. Donovan, you have some questions or artists you want to pull up?
Yeah, we got a bunch of questions. People been going off in the
Hmm.
comments. So let's go with the first one. So this one is from, let me find Matt's question because this is a really good one. So Matt is asking, let me go back down here. There we go. Is a manager something we should actively look for or let it come to us?
Man, I listen. I always believe it's across the board in life. I think just you're putting yourself out there. I think the right things will come to you. That's how I personally. Those are my personal thoughts, right? I feel like um, your job is to be aware and to be present, and the right situation will come about, right? Some people go looking for management and they forgot to do all the other things before they before they look for the manager. You know what I mean? So like, for example, if an artist comes to me and they don't have their, like, they haven't done the other work, it's like, all right, cool. Like, you got to go do the other work first, right? There's, but that's and again, I think the to find that one person that loves what you're doing, I don't think you, I don't think you can find that person by going to look for that person. I don't think you can make someone like that person just has to fall in love with what you're doing and be willing to and make that decision on their own that they're gonna put everything on the line for that artist. So I'd
That's great.
say just stay focused and create the art and put yourself out there as much as possible. And I think, somebody will find you.
Dope. So this question is kind of a similar in a way, but it's also more of a regional question around. This one's coming from DNA Picasso. So DNA says Denver has a strong hip hop and R&B scene, but very little established management. Do artists have to leave to find the right team, or is there a way to attract management to invest and build within?
I mean, you got the internet, you know. Um, I think you got to utilize the internet, you know. If you're unable to move, right? I came from I've always moved to. I just moved back to New York right now because I'm like things that I'm doing is this is more opportunity here for me. So I'm like I just got to go put myself in that position, right? And even at the space that I'm in right now, when I moved to LA, I moved to LA because opportunity was there. It wasn't where I was at the moment. When I first came to New York, I had $50 in my pocket, maybe not even that. And
Gordon, don't lie. You moved back because the Knicks won the championship.
you know what? I had to do it. No, yeah. You know what? You got me there. Now I was like,
I
yeah.
can't stand these New York guys, man.
You know
Bandwagon
what?
fans,
Yeah,
not flat.
yeah. Like yeah. But by the way, I'm moving to Philly because Bron. No, yeah. I love a good bandwagon. It's like it's, yeah. But yeah, nah, yeah. It was but yeah. All to say is it's man. A part of this journey is sacrifice, right? So like, I'm not saying go jump off the bridge. You know what I'm saying? But I am saying that if you feel like it's that you need to be somewhere else, pay attention to that feeling, is what I'm saying. But in
Mhm.
the meantime, if you don't have resources to do it, the internet is very vast and it's big, and you can grab attention on the internet. Um, and so, like use the tools at your hand currently. And again, if you feel like that is not, if you feel like you got that urge, you got to do what you got to do. I'd say, especially for younger artists and younger age, this is the time to do it.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely. Yep, absolutely. All right, this next one is coming up from Ricardo, and he's asking, when you first started working with Doja, what gaps did you identify in her career or business that she hadn't recognized yet, and how did you address them?
The thing is, I don't think that you said what some of the things like I don't know if it was things that she was missing, right? Like she was a complete package, right? Like she had everything. I think there was just things that just she just needed to be exposed to more people. And I think that was
Wow.
the biggest thing,
Wow.
right? Like
Wow. Yep.
she always had it all, man. Like if you look back at like some of her first songs or first project, that she was as creative as she ever been. It was like, how do we? The music video stuff is really where, like, for us, where we found like she that was the way that we could show her actual, true artistic vision to tie along with the song. So the first record was Juicy, and we knew that to break the internet because she was the only artist at the time that could do something like that. And it was always after that point, it was always like we have to invest in the visual aspect of this girl's career and the performance side of things. She already had those things. It was just we had to expose the masses to the fact that she already had those things. So, um, you know, yes, that's the answer to the question. I can end it there.
Nice, nice. All
Yeah.
right. So this one is coming from Najari or Najer. I might have said your name wrong. For an independent artist who's still developing their sound and identity, how do you know when to keep experimenting versus when to commit to a particular sound and build around it?
Listen, if you don't feel comfortable in the music that you're making, then that means that's not the music you should feel. You're not there yet. Like artists that know that they're making some fire, they know they're making fire and they believe in it. You don't have to. You're not questioning what you're doing. And again, that's take away just artistry. That's anybody and anything you're doing. When you feel good and you feel confident in what you're doing and who you are, like you're not second guessing it. If you don't, that's when people will say things. That's when little comments online will get you to move and alter your things. That's when people will have an opinion and will shift your balance. In this, you cannot have that wiggle room. You gotta, because you gotta be able to believe in anything you're doing, because this is not a game for the weak. Again, one thing with Doja specific, like I said, that like she would never falter. She doesn't to this day. If she believes in something, that's what she believes in, and we don't even
The
try to knock her off
conviction.
it. It's 1000%. It's conviction. You gotta have it, and you gotta believe in your music to the very end. Now, experimenting with your music, that's a personal thing. Like experimenting, elevating your music and those things. That's just a part of practicing and being great at your craft. But you have to believe in what you're doing as an artist. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
conviction. Yep, like y'all saying, conviction is everything for sure.
I'm top.
Uh,
These are gems, by the way, and I'm serious, man. Like this is like really good stuff. Really good stuff.
People are enjoying the convo too. So this one is coming from Vershawn, and he's asking, how do you balance marketing and pushing for a larger audience with staying in touch with fans, having a behind the scenes experience, and does it look different for a newer artist versus an established artist?
Sorry, well, can you say that one more time, man? I just got distracted real quick. Say it one more time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you balance marketing and pushing for a larger audience with staying in touch with fans, having behind the scenes experiences, and does it look different for newer artists versus established artists?
How do you balance marketing? Yeah, how do you balance marketing and pushing for a larger audience with staying in touch with fans? I mean, I don't. I mean, I'm just trying to think of the question, but like, if it's
I'm confused. I'm confused by the
yeah, I'm a little
question
I
too.
confused. I'm
think the
like,
question, let
yeah,
me let me try to break it down because I was confused
yeah,
reading
a
it, but
little
I think
confused.
I
Yeah,
understand what they're trying to ask. So I think what they're saying is like, how do you balance like trying to get out to the world, like getting out to the world, building the brand around a release and artist, but then at the same time, how do you do the deeper fan building where you're still having like touch points with the fan base, like what goes on behind the scenes for an artist like Doja, where she has millions of fans all over the world. Like,
Mhm.
how do y'all build that fan connection with those artists? I think, and obviously it does look different for like an artist at Doja side versus a smaller artist who has more bandwidth and time to reach out to their supporters. So I think that was the question they were asking.
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, one, I think, you know, marketing and marketing is like what you're doing is marketing. You should look at marketing like it's an exposure of what you're selling, right? That's like marketing, right? I think fan building is not necessarily marketing. I think that is what you do. Like for example, Doja, when she was coming up, her lives were how she really built her authenticity with her fans, and that's how she built a brand. It could be like that for somebody else can have a different thing. Like I know Russ's thing is like he puts a song out a week or something like that on Fridays, and like and that's how and he shows up to certain places and like builds with his fans that way. And like Daniel Caesar made do performances in the park or whatever the case would be. Like there's different ways of organically staying true to who you are and building that real that fan base with experiences with your fans or via online. And then it's marketing, marketing to the masses, as long as you're marketing the same things that you're doing, and if that makes sense. It's like you can't do one thing here and then market something else, because then you lose the identity gets lost somewhere. So it's marketing to your fan is specific to the artist, and that has to be authentic, and that's just engagement and things along those lines. So like how we still do it, like we keep in touch with all of our fan pages, and we will do things of that nature, or we do small stuff like our partnership with Mac. Part of our deal with them are in stores, and so we invite a lot of fans to in stores, and Doja takes time and spends time, talking to fans and doing things along those lines and really engaging with them. when we dropped the album, we invited a bunch of fans to an interactive experience to show them a new music video, and a lot of fans in New York were able to come see that and like be in the same room with her, hang out with her, and like those type of things. So like that's our way of interacting and giving back to fans, along with like whether it be different experiences at the show, etc. Obviously, there's a smaller scale to that, but that doesn't have anything to do with how we market things. You know what I mean? Those are two separate things, in my opinion. And your marketing is what you're pushing, and you're basically building visibility and awareness to your music or whatever it is you're promoting. So that's my answer on that one.
Okay, cool, cool. You got a
Yeah,
time for like a few more questions, Gordon?
yeah, I'm here, man. I'm here. Yeah,
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
let's take two more, Donovan.
Cool. So this one's coming from Emma. So she's asking, I know it takes 7 to 10 years, but a lot of the time I'm left wondering if I'm doing all the right things. If daily I'm working on my vocal craft and writing, performing, releasing regularly, um, we're focusing on content, ads, blogs, radio, playlisting. Is there something I'm missing? And do you have any advice on finding balance and avoiding burnout with this?
Um, Burnout is a real thing. It's actually been a topic that I've been talking to or talking about quite a bit because and I think today's age with social media and stuff like that, and I think in the comparison world and like feeling like the world making you feel like maybe you're not enough or you're not doing enough or whatever the case may be. I think it's very easy to look past the signs of us burning ourselves out. And obviously, being consistent doesn't mean you can't take a break to make sure you're good and that you're saying like you're healthy and those things. It doesn't mean don't take care of yourself. It just means that you're working at the same thing for a long period of time, right? Um, so to get the burnout thing out the way. But I'd say as far as if you're I think it's really you're doing all of these things and you're developing. Like if you're developing or not, right? Like if you're doing better than you normally are. It's also like you can talk to your friends. You have your warm circle of people that are around you that you can also be talking to about these things and getting their thoughts and opinions about it. You can be putting music out to the world and getting get real life feedback from it. Pay attention to your stats. Pay attention to like how things are developing. Like if you're putting out a song and getting the same result for 3 years straight, you're probably missing something. You're probably not doing something. You're not placing yourself in a certain place. So it's really to be aware of, where you're at and where you and what you're doing, and then it's like if it's not working, to do something else and to try different things until you find what works for you. Because what works for, let's say, Doja may not work for um, another artist. What works for another artist may not work for what we're doing, right? And it's like, so it's there's no cookie cutter way of finding a way to success, right? Um, but the consistency of making the effort and continuously doing things and getting better at them will will turn the card eventually. And I know it's easier said than done, but it's looking at some guys, all of us here on the phone, I'm sure we're proof of that. It does turn, but again, we pay attention to those things. We know when to make a left turn. We know when to. You can feel it. It's one of those things. It's like if it's not working, you got to do something different. But it doesn't mean stop. It just means change the dial a little bit. Or put yourself maybe here or there or somewhere else. Um, yeah. I mean, I can get more specific with a specific situation or artist or music or genre or stuff like that. But like that's an overall blanket that can hopefully keeps it warm. you know.
No, absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
So the last one we're gonna go with is around finding a good entertainment lawyer, like finding a lawyer. So MA is asking, what is the best way to find a good entertainment lawyer? What are some things to look for, watch out for? I'm worried about a bad lawyer that can ruin a deal for me.
Um, Man, it's I'll be honest, I've never had to look for a good lawyer, right? It's like I've always just moving around the industry, I've always met good people, or I just met people, and then I'm able to just do research on those guys to see, if they're good or not. I will say this though, I think it's very important before you decide to jump into music or while you're in the music or any industry is to learn the most you can about the industry. The way you do not get screwed over is by knowledge. You know, if you know something about something, people cannot just they can't get one over. They can't pull one up on you. And I real like, you know, me and Troy, we talk about certain things in different industries. I'm actually looking to go into, and you know, he's giving me reading materials and stuff like that. When you learn things, and you know things, um, you know when things are not correct, or you know when things are not right. You know when somebody's trying to pull a fast one. You have the information. If you don't know something, then you're every lawyer is a bad lawyer. Because
Wow.
you know it's
That's
like
the truth, by the way.
yeah, it's you know you gotta know what you're doing. And like, you know, I've been fortunate enough to have run into some really good people that have protected me. um but not every case is going to be like that. I've also run into some attorneys that have even recently, you know, just try to stab me in the back with some things. So like, you know, it's um I'd say do your research, you know, find who your favorite artists are, find out who their attorney, you know, who their lawyers are. There's always lawyers that work underneath those major lawyers, you know, reaching out to those guys and building your own relationship with them, let them know what you're doing. There's always lawyers are just like, you know, artists. They're always looking to represent the next biggest thing. You know, that's how they're building their careers too as well. So like, find the younger guy that's hungry, just like the younger manager that understands what legal is and is willing to work with you, because you don't have a lot of money going, so you're not going to be paying these guys a bunch of money, if any at all. So like, they got to believe in you, like that manager's got to believe in you, and they got to stick with you too as well. So like, yeah, I'd say reach out. That's the way I would do it. If I'm in that position, I'm like, all right, who's my favorite artist? What's the law firms that represent the artist? Who are some of the younger guys at that law firm? Let me go on Instagram, Facebook, whatever those things are, whatever, you know, Facebook, I'm aging myself, but go to Instagram or like any of these other places, and yes, reach out, build your relationship with these guys. You know, you're in the sales business as well. When you're an artist, you gotta, you know, you have to, you can't be afraid of doors being slammed on you, or people saying no, or people not believing in you. You actually have to be used to people not believing in what you're doing, because you're crazy until you're not crazy. And that is something that I still have to remember, and I think that every person should remember. And anything they embark on is nobody sees the world through the same lens as you see them. So you can't expect people to understand, or to you can't expect people to understand your vision, or what you're looking to do, or the music you're trying to put together. You gotta show them. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer.
No, that's great though. It's a
No, that's
lot in there.
great. You're, you're,
Yeah.
you're crazy until you're not crazy.
That's the
Yeah.
line. Yeah.
And then we figure out like
Yo.
we're all crazy. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, we're all a
Yes.
little crazy, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
So
look, man, this has been amazing, man, and like
mhm.
I think everybody can clearly see why I was excited about bringing Gordon in and having this conversation. I talked to a lot of people, and Gordon, just from our first conversation, I'm like, the guy isn't just smart, he's wise. Like,
Yeah.
is a
Thank
lot
you,
is a
man.
lot of wisdom there. And so, one, thank you for sharing this wisdom. And then,
Mhm.
for everybody that tuned in, take this and use it. Take it and use it. So for me, I just want to say thank you again, man. I'm personally looking forward just to continuing to build with you, and
Yeah.
for us to learn from each other and share information. So appreciate you very much.
Yeah, likewise, man. I always, again, I appreciate so much of what you've done for like just leading to the, allowing and laying the platform for guys like us to exist, and have a space to work and be great. And yeah, I mean, and thanks for everybody for tuning in. I always love sharing and paying the information forward. I think it's a really important thing to do.
And Gordon, before we head out too, where can people
Mhm.
find you at, just to just stay in touch with what you're doing and follow along your
Um,
journey?
I'm on Instagram. I don't really post too much. like Troy said in the beginning, like I'm just kind of I'm not a front facing person that often. Like I don't, so my Instagram is which is a terrible handle, by the way. I just can't get off of it, but it's it's G underscore the only one. That's my my Instagram, and you just kind of got to catch me when you catch me, kind of thing. So, I am around, and I at random I respond to people's stuff, and I try to do things like this as much as possible to spread the information. So, and if you see me outside, say hello. I'm a friendly guy.
Nice, man. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for the time. Really
of course,
appreciate
man.
it.
Likewise, I appreciate you guys.
All right, thank you, man.
All right,
All right, everybody. All
all right,
right,
peace.
everybody. Have a wonderful night. And yeah, we'll be back soon. Take care,
Cool. All right.
bro.